Hello there. So I'm going to cover this story about there's a guy in a Walmart store standing in an aisle with what we know, because we know after the fact, was not a real gun. Based on the CCTV camera footage, you can't really see if it's real or not. And what is presented by this YouTube channel, I feel like, is very disingenuous towards police. And I have covered in my videos before that there's an active policy under the Biden administration that is harming people, specifically minorities. I covered the Devontae Mitchell story, which a guy was killed exactly like George Floyd was. Nobody has made sure that those people who murdered him in broad daylight were charged. To this day that I know of, nobody was charged. And under the Trump administration, and I'm just telling you the facts, I'm not really a Trump supporter. I'm like, whatever they do individually, I don't care what party they are. If they do the right thing, I'm going to commend them. If they do the wrong thing, I'm going to call it out. Under Trump's administration, Trump called the Floyd's family personally, and he called out publicly what the police had done was wrong. And in conclusion, George Floyd's, each and every one of them, even though the media, under the left media, tried to minimize the amount of people involved in murdering George Floyd, it wasn't just one person who if they had their way, only one person would have been charged. It was not one person holding him down. It was three people holding him down. One held his feet, one put a knee in his back, and then one put a knee in his neck. So, and then one of them was like, trying to prevent anybody from getting involved. So all four officers were charged and convicted. Okay? And under the Biden administration, you've got policies such as the lady who was murdered, the black lady who was murdered in her apartment, when plainclothes officers, and this is just recent, like a week ago, I think, a Kentucky judge made sure that those officers who were not held accountable for murdering a black man who was in bed, waking up to people in plain clothes. They had a warrant, but guess what? They falsified the warrant. And yet the judge still said, oh, so what? The warrant was falsified. They still did nothing wrong. So they break into a man's apartment, claim they committed a crime of falsifying a warrant, okay? And they're not even they didn't knock and say, please, open up or anything like that. They barged into the apartment. The guy responds in self-defense and fires his weapon. And they put 32, I think it was like 30-some bullets in the guy. They killed her. It was his girlfriend that ended up dying, but they blamed the boyfriend. He was opening fire. I'm like, yeah, but you were in plain clothes. These are policies that's happening across the nation. So these guys show up at this Walmart, because some guy, and I'm going to tell you right now, the guy from what I seen in the video, the way the YouTube channel presents it was like he was giving false information. I don't believe the guy gave false information, because you don't know what he saw prior to his calling. They're saying, oh, he's saying he's pointing to kids, and okay, well, you can't tell from the CCTV camera what he's doing with his gun. You don't know what he saw, because the only thing that they were showing was CCTV footage while he was on the phone. So in this day and age where people are showing up and doing mass shootings in schools and just in various places, I think people acting in fear and calling and saying, hey, and the way the guy was standing there in the Walmart store was bizarre. It was bizarre behavior. Okay, so he believed, like, here's this guy hunched over, and he's just standing here with this gun. And from what I understand, it's a toy gun. This is Walmart. But he's just standing there. He's, like, pointing at things, but he's just standing there for a long time, right? So here he is hunched over. So the guy believes he's putting bullets in the gun, right? But what he believed, I don't think he's just making stuff up because he's a black man. Let me tell you what, if I think somebody's being racist, I will call it out. And I do think that Devontae Mitchell was a racist murder. They murdered that man in broad daylight, and to this day, nobody's being charged. Biden's making sure that nobody gets charged because he ain't speaking up like Trump did against the police who killed George Floyd. And Devontae Mitchell was killed in the same fashion. And it's disgusting. So here in this is a black guy. He's standing here in the store but he is acting bizarre. And I'm like, I commend the guy who did call. If he got things wrong, but what the police do in response is a whole different matter. So he's just standing there in the aisle, pointing at things for a long period of time. Like if somebody's looking at a toy, and they're checking it out, but this doesn't even look like it's in its package. So this was, making a caller concerned. And so he's like, he thinks it's a real gun because one, if you go in the store, normally these things have cardboard, they're in packages, and he's just standing there for a long period of time. Not that he's doing anything illegal, but the person was concerned, right? So what the police do in response, they go in there, and according to the police in the interview, he's saying he told the guy, drop your weapon, and the guy did not respond. So maybe the guy's high, maybe he's just, I don't know. I don't know what his deal was. I have no idea. But if the cop, what he's saying, because, you don't hear that. And the way this channel presents it is he blacks out the part where the cops come in and shoot this guy. They completely blacks it out. So how are you supposed to know if the guy didn't point this fake gun at him? I think the channel's being very unfair to cops. If I think for 1 second, if y'all know me and know my channel, y'all know I will call it out. If cops are doing anything dirty, I will call it out. But if they're not doing anything wrong and people are just like trying to make their job harder, like this guy, these cops come in, they think this guy is in there pointing guns at kids, and he thinks he's like some crazed shooter, right? He's standing there with the gun. So by the time the cops get there, okay, how many minutes have passed? 10, 15, 20, and the guy's still standing there. So they're on, high alert that something's very wrong, right? My problem with what this guy is presenting on this channel is he's acting like what these cops did are wrong. He's angry because they got by with it. But here's the problem. What they're presenting is very misleading. What they're not presenting is, oh, by the way, did you not know that they have a don't bother to knock and announce yourself policies that are spreading across the nation? That's why they dropped the charges in Kentucky a few days ago on a woman who did nothing wrong but was laying in her bed asleep and was murdered by cops who falsified a warrant, busted in their house, and just for having, if you're black, or if you could be anybody. You could be anybody. And you don't have a right to self-defense if somebody who's not even in a uniform and plainclothesman busts in your house. Busts in your house, doesn't make any announcements, and you fire back. This is a very, very serious thing that people are losing their right to defend themselves in their own homes. And now, of course, that channel, as far as I know, hasn't said anything about that and acting like this is like some bad act of a cop. The cop went in there, told him to drop his weapon, which he thought was a weapon. The guy did not respond accordingly, and he was shot. In that scenario, the cops didn't do anything wrong. And if the caller got anything wrong of what he believed or perceived, it's not his fault. A caller simply, they're trying to present it like it's racist. And these channels doing stuff like this for clicks and views while they're completely ignoring the Devontae Mitchell thing and acting like this is, what I see is they're acting like this is not a spreading, it's deceptive. And here's why. Because they're not presenting to the public, oh, by the way, did you know that they don't have to announce anything when they bust in your apartment? Why aren't they covering the fact that that case was dropped? I'm talking about this case. This case is horrendous. Judge blames Breonna Taylor's boyfriend for shooting and dismisses key charges against the police officers who killed her. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is a United States judge. This is where your real racism is coming from. It is from judges that are in place. You can't blame the president. You can't blame the cops. You blame these judges in place who are horrendous. So looky here. Oh yeah, so what, they falsified. So what, they falsified the warrant. They didn't even have an actual warrant to be going into the home. Walker's decision to shoot at Detective Joshua James during the raid forced officers to fire back. Felony deprivation of rights under the color of law charges. They were previously charged for approving a search warrant despite knowing there was a false affidavit. Okay. If you know that it's a false affidavit, why are you issuing a search warrant? And this is the kind of thing that's happening across our country. They were wearing plain clothes. Look, plain clothes. How are people supposed to respond when they're waking up? You got people in regular clothes busting in your house, not making an announcement, and you're not allowed to defend yourself? This is coming from the judges, people. No drugs were found. He thought they were intruders. They shot 32 shots into him, one of which killed Breonna. Did they really need to shoot 32 times? So they committed illegal acts to even get into his house. You know it's a felony to write a false affidavit. That's a felony, okay? It's a felony. So that voids any rights that they had to be into that apartment. And they knew it was a false affidavit, okay? They knew it was a false affidavit, right? So these are policies, though. These are policies allowing officers to break into home in plain clothes. Not even wearing, it would be different if they were wearing like SWAT gear. It would be like, hello. As soon as you open your eyes and you see people but even then, they should make announcements. They should make announcements. But this is what they're doing. Then you have the Devontae Mitchell case. This is Devontae Mitchell. In my opinion, he was murdered in broad daylight. Security guards outside a Hyatt Regency in Milwaukee murdered him. They were fired, but they referred 4 charges of felony murder to the DA, but there's no charges been filed by the DA. And in the George Floyd case, at the very least, the sitting president at that time called out what the officers did was wrong. They were charged, and they were all convicted because what they did was wrong. Now, while it's still being debated on if the guy did anything wrong at that hotel, that's irrelevant. If you do something wrong, it doesn't give them a right to execute a man in broad daylight. Even people convicted of murder don't get executed. What they did to George Floyd, the amount of time they sat on him, he wasn't even resisting, he wasn't even breathing, he was dead. His heart had ceased pumping, and they still sat on him. They still pinned him down. And this is how they killed this man. And yet, where is the exposure of this? Why is the current sitting president silent on this? So you got this channel, and when you show the way, it's just what they're doing is misleading. One, they're making it seem like that what these cops did were wrong, like they got away with the crime, as if this is not a policy that they're using across the nation. But the fact of the matter is, the cop says in the interview that he did, in fact, tell the guy to put the gun down, and he was standing there for a long time with what looks to be a gun. And in this CCTV camera, you can't tell if that's a toy gun or not. Get real. So what they're doing, when the guy is on 911 with the cops, this is what they're seeing. They can interact with the CCTV camera and look and see what's going on while the guy's on the phone with 911. So he told them what he saw prior to the phone call, and he believed he was pointing stuff at children. And you don't see that, whether or not he was actually pointing anything at kids. But in the call, he's like, well, he's just pointing at stuff now. And that's exactly what he was doing. You can't tell if that's a real gun or not. So when they show up, this channel blacks out all of this. You can't see what's going on. You can't see in this video whether or not that guy responded when the cops were coming in. Did he just stand there, or did he point it at them? He was making movements, is what the cops said. So I feel like this channel's been very unfair to the police, because you're blacking out the very crucial moment of what you're making an accusation that he wrongly shot this guy. And I don't care what color this guy is. If you're standing there with a gun and these cops tell you to drop your weapon and you don't, well, you're kind of asking for it. You're in a store, you're standing there for 20-some minutes with what looks to be a gun, whether it's a toy or not. You know, maybe you're just like low-key trying to scare people. Whatever. You know? And if they hadn't made any announcement like drop your weapon, then that would have been a problem, because he could have been mentally ill, high, you know what I'm saying? They should have said drop your weapon, and then, but that's what they said they did in the interview. And you're not going to hear that, because on the CCTV camera, there's no audio. There's no audio. So how is this channel, this is what irks me, is these guys want clicks and views, so they're like, oh, it's popular to down the cops whenever somebody gets shot. Especially, you know, you want to, like, bring out the race thing while you're ignoring the real racist stuff going on in our country. Hello. Do you see anything on this channel about what they did in Oklahoma, where they were you got sheriff and other elected officials talking about lynching black people and having the excavation equipment to bury the bodies, and the governor of the state of Oklahoma and the attorney general just said that's offensive speech, as if it's okay to use the public office for stuff like that? They were caught on an audio that somebody had unknowingly left on while a reporter went to the bathroom or something. Then you have what happened to Devontae Mitchell, Breonna Taylor, okay? They literally just dropped the charges when these guys are not even charged for falsifying an affidavit. If you get a warrant on a criminal act of falsifying an affidavit, you're not protected under any immunities, or you darn sure should not be. If you knowingly committed a criminal act, okay, and I'll tell you what, I know of cases, because I've filed federal cases myself, okay, where the ruling has come out that under bad faith acts, they can be sued in their individual capacity. And not only that, if they're committing a criminal act, they're not protected for immunities. But under that federal judge ruling, under the Breonna Taylor case, it didn't matter that they committed a criminal act of falsifying an affidavit. It didn't matter that they were wearing plain clothes. So that takes away your right to defend yourself. If anybody wearing plain clothes doesn't even announce their cops, can just bust in your house, and this could be done to anybody. Okay? Why isn't this channel covering those stories? Then you pick a story like this, where this guy's standing here with a gun. It doesn't matter, it's a toy gun. He's standing here for like half an hour, and then want to be angry at a man for calling, say, suspicious activity. This is suspicious activity. Why is he standing there for that amount of time like that? Why are you dissing a cop who tells the guy to put the weapon down and he doesn't? Okay. What, you just want kids to not go protected? Okay, well, we're not going to shoot somebody who's been, you know, pointing guns at kids. We don't know if he pointed that toy gun at kids. We don't know. We don't know. Because guess what? That part wasn't shown. There was a part where there was some kids and a parent who come up in here, and that's not the part. He was talking about something happened prior to him making a phone call. And in the phone call, in the 911 audio, you can hear him say, well, I don't know what he's doing. Listen, I don't know what he's doing, was his words. He's pointing at things. And that's exactly what he was doing at the time that he said that. And he didn't even know that they could see through the CCTV camera what he was doing. So I think it's very unfair to like label that caller as having done anything wrong and to down these cops for reacting. And now if the cops are lying and you get a copy of the body cam and the body cam shows they did not say put your weapon down, did not give him a warning, then that would be a different story. Okay, but where's the body cam? Why is this channel not showing the body cam? It shows the interview where he said, so this is why they chose not to charge the officers. They did do, anytime, you know, there's a shooting like this with an officer, they do an inquiry, which is what this is. And he, you know, so this guy here, he's getting all the information, and this guy tells him, well, I told him to put his weapon down, and he didn't respond. So here's the caller, and he's saying, he was on the phone laughing, and I don't know what was going on. I don't know what was going on there. So when he reports that he saw what looked to be him pointing at kids, that happened before he got on the phone. While he's on the phone, he says, well, I don't know what he's doing. He's just pointing at things. The guy thought it was a real gun. He thought it was a real gun. Because he thought it was a real gun, and the cops go in there and tell this guy to drop the weapon, and he doesn't, and he gets shot. They're all a bunch of evil people. Get real. Racism in America is happening, and let's focus on some real cases of racism, like Devontae Mitchell, Breonna Taylor. Okay? I get so sick and tired of because what happens is, what I see, there's a pattern that these lefty channels will present stuff that there's no real racism there. Presented as if it is, and then a bunch of people like myself go, well, this is a bunch of nonsense. You'll have a lot of people that agree with them, but then people are like, well, racism isn't real, because then you get your people, like Candace Owens, she'll say, oh, well, he didn't do anything wrong. And if she had her way, the people who killed George Floyd would not have been prosecuted. She was like trying to say they were rookies, and like that one, the Asian guy, he was like not a rookie. He was actually sued for excessive force and settled out of court, and already had discipline and stuff in his, but if she had her way, only one person would have been prosecuted, right? And so they're cherry picking cases like this, where like a lot of people are just like, well, this is just a bunch of nonsense, instead of actually presenting the real racism cases, okay? And problematic policies of police, like Breonna Taylor's death. They falsified an affidavit. They lied, which is a felony. You lied in a report. It's a crime. They weren't charged for lying in a report, and the United States judge dismissed the case, right? And to this day, despite the fact that the officers who murdered Devontae Mitchell were referred for felony murder charges, they're not charged, people. Okay? They're not charged at all. Right? So anyways, I just want people, when they see stuff like this, to don't just receive what they feed you, and to look into things. And I want people to demand prosecution of Devontae Mitchell's murderers. There was no excuse for what they did to him. There was no excuse. And what they did to Breonna Taylor, those cops, for falsifying an affidavit, need to be charged for that. And they need to be charged for, based on a false affidavit, the criminal act of falsifying an affidavit. And you need to go after the policies that they can wear plain clothes, bust into people's apartments or houses, and not even announce themselves. Because until people go after the policies and the unconstitutional, that takes away people's right to defend themselves. If cops can, in plain clothes, bust in your house, not even announce themselves, and then shoot you if you act in self-defense, you've lost your right to self-defense. And don't think because it's not happened to you that it couldn't happen to you, people. That's what needs to be presented. But of course, for whatever reason, this channel isn't going that route.